I'm going to be playing the Civilization series for the first time ever. Now, I got Civ 6 on a Steam sale, but never really got into it, because the interface looks like this. But today I'll be jumping headlong into hundreds of unique civs, dozens of unique resources, and thousands of cultural icons that I'm definitely pronouncing wrong. Launch the game and get treated to a great cinematic about the rise and fall of great civilizations. But while it looks cool, I know the actual Civ experience isn't as theatrical. Like I said, Civ 6 has been chained up in my Steam library for quite some time now, but I have launched it before, a whole year ago, so no fancy new player greetings here. Luckily, the menu has a tutorial button right smack dab in the middle, so let's learn how to forge a civilization.
Their fate lies in your hands.
For the tutorial, we get the choice between two faction leaders. Cleopatra of Egypt is billed as a great city builder, while Gilgamesh of the Sumerian Empire is a respected conqueror. But as the game is called Civilization and not, Total War, I think the choice is obvious. Let's see here. Of course, as the Mediterranean bride, Cleopatra's spinneys, or trade routes, provide extra gold. And we can't forget about the famous Egyptian Iteru, which boosts production. Not really sure what that means. And the Mari Anu chariot archer, which, they don't even try to describe that one. Every Civ game begins with a settler, and the founding of your capital city. In our case, okay, I'm definitely not getting this one right, Ra Cadet? Every city has a population number indicated on the left of the nameplate. Disregard the fact that there are two numbers over there. You'll figure it out. If we want to properly harvest our lands, we'll need to increase our population. And if we want rival civilizations to not harvest our lands, we'll need to employ our strongest warriors. Introducing the first of many resources and numbers we'll be needing to keep track of, production. It took a bit for this one to click, and it definitely doesn't help that the tutorial skips the whole waiting for production to finish part of Civ, but basically each city has a production output. Each unit or building has a production cost, and the amount of turns it takes is based upon how long it will take for output to match cost. Sorry for the math jump scare, but don't worry, cause before it can really truly sink in, bam, another resource, science. This pretty much works the exact same way, but you're building your tech tree rather than a specific unit. But as a consequence, science is faction-wide, while production, you're gonna need a spreadsheet for each city. Either way, our instant microwave warriors are here, so let's get into combat. Like I said, it's a Civ game, not Total War. Like all things Civ, it's all background numbers and calculations, but I'm not gonna lie, without a total health or damage number, 23 strength versus base 20 minus 10 damaged unit means very little to me. We've gone over settlers and soldiers, and now onto builders, who can take our fertile natural land and sully them with the fires of industry and fossil fuels. Well, only if our civilization can get the hang of the whole mining thing first. In the meantime, scouts are great at exploring the great beyond with their 3-tile movement. Just not over hills and forests. And while the tech tree is very intimidating with its multiple options, which give multiple new advancements, the tutorial makes sure to hold your hand very tightly so you don't get lost along the way.
A wise decision.
In fact, in the first 10 minutes, the only control I had was running my scout into a dead end. But back to builders. By navigating to an empty tile, we can build improvements based on our scientific findings, in this case a humble farm to help grow our population. Like real human beings, our builders are bound to their fragile, time-bound lives, and thus can only build 3 improvements before retiring. But it's worth it to unlock the natural resources that power all great nations, like wheat and coffee. And I have to stress, builders build improvements, because buildings are built through city production. Builders don't build buildings. Now, in the background of this whole thing, we've been cultivating another quote-unquote tech tree, culture. And as our first cultural breakthrough, we've discovered the code of law. And now it's time to establish our first government. Each form of government you discover gives you access to different policy slots, which can be filled with corresponding policy cards. It looks pretty nice and simple in this tutorial section, but I promise it'll get a whole lot worse really quickly. As I've mentioned about 50 times, the game is called Civilization, not really big and cool city, so now it's time to expand our borders. Just don't expect our fledgling city to be producing anything anytime soon. At this point, the game finally lets me loose and switches to a checklist system of progression. Build the scientific campus. Against my best judgment, I forego building a farm to see if I can build a second Sphinx. You can. But in trying to get a potential thumbnail, I find out that there is no button to rotate the camera. That can't be right. Either way, our ultimate goal is to eliminate our opponent, Gilgamesh. After spotting his territory with a scout, and inconspicuously posturing my fighting forces along his border, the AI actually surprises me by demanding that I leave. But unfortunately, only one of us can leave this tutorial alive. So let's talk about our first victory condition, domination. By destroying our opponent's cities, we can claim victory. But taking down cities isn't quite as easy as the rogue barbarians from earlier. First of all, actual cities are incredibly tanky. But more importantly, they can shield units within, meaning his carts can freely do drive-bys on my undefended slingers. Would spending time teching out of rocks and clubs help speed up the wars of tomorrow? Sure, but I'm fighting a war right now. Of course, Civ being a game with millions of systems, my war campaign is rudely interrupted by the tutorial for great persons. But Hypatia's science growths aren't gonna help me defeat the ancient empire of Sumer, so let's get back to war. Take over the first city, turn down nearly 100 calls for peace. I'm not even joking. And soon enough, I've claimed my first victory. But that was just the tutorial on Rail 2 Civilization starter meal. If I want the real Civ experience, I'm gonna have to try my hand at a full-scale game. And I'm not even gonna lie, this ad right here was the first time I'd ever heard that there was a 7th Civ game, which just goes to show how much I know. The first and perhaps most important decision in any Civ game is which civilization I'll helm. And I'll be completely honest, I don't think I've heard of 90% of these world leaders, much less the historical significance of the Dom Ray and the Prasat. But as the tutorial mission focused on the domination victory, I decided to try something else, and went with my big-brained friend, Sejong from Korea. And even though zombie defense mode sounds like good fun, I'm keeping every other setting on default.
Now begins your greatest quest.
But it wouldn't be Civ without even more systems to keep track of, this time from the Gathering Storm expansion. Not only does my civilization have to worry about my human gross mismanagement, now we have to worry about natural disasters too. There's also a World Leader Summit. They fixed the previous warmongering system, which, thank God, I really hated that old one. But finally, the City of Seoul is born. The early sections are just like the tutorial. Scouts, warriors, city-states, more or less minor factions, and a barbarian camp, but since they have stronger spearmen, I'll leave them alone for now. Surely this won't cause any problems in the future. While it can be daunting to play without any guardrails, every production and research option always has a recommended choice. Well, most of the time. Establish a government, create our second city, and now our first disaster. Well, natural disaster. And luckily, it's nowhere near my glorious civilization. Around here, we only place our farms on the most fertile of, and my farm is underwater. Now for our first real disaster. The barbarians have found out that I have bananas. I could panic, but I am a ruler of science and measured results, and as such, must begin construction on my first Seowan with a juicy +4 science bonus. Unfortunately, my lack of standing army means I have to sacrifice a mine or two to continue my search for knowledge. But by taking advantage of what I learned and garrisoning my slingers in the safety of my city, calling in some reinforcements, and getting tripped up by the whole "you can't have 2 units in the same city at the same time or else you can't issue attack orders with either" rule, I managed to repel the barbarian assault. Now, one cool aspect is that by doing certain tasks, you can unlock Eurekas or Inspirations, which boost the rate of your science and culture respectively. In my case, killing things with slingers made us realize, man, we really gotta get archers around here. Another new system is governors, which can be assigned to cities to boost them, which of course have their own skill trees. At this point, I encounter another civilization, one of Civ's greatest cultural contributions, Gandhi. Luckily for me, with my focus on science, I should be able to outrace him to acquiring his beloved nuclear arms. Another system is faith. You can establish your own religion with its own benefits and can win by converting other civilizations. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm already a little overwhelmed with everything else going on, so I kind of ignored this part of the game. Okay, you get it at this point, is trade, letting us build roads and gain resources. And so the dawn of the classical age is upon us, and we can pick focuses to gain bonus era points. Don't know what any of that is, but it sounds good, so let's focus on sciences. Third city, and my garrisoned archers make defending a breeze. But remember how I said the government system is going to get a lot more complex? Well, here we are, with a choice between 3 different systems, and my deck of cards is rapidly reproducing. With a renewed interest in securing my southern border, I actually begin moving troops southward, and in the same year I invent machinery, I finally clear out my southern barbarian neighbors. From there, I really start to go into a flow state, largely by ignoring the things that are a bit too complex for my new player brain. My empire churns out great scientists, and I vaguely motion them towards my universities and move on with my life. Great profit? Nah, we have no idea how to run a religion. I needed that brain space to ensure that I can manage a 4th city. But I want to take a little diversion to explain the dumbest mistake I made during my entire play session. During my quest to push south, I considered upgrading my warriors to swordsmen, but I don't have enough iron. 2-part question then, where is my iron? First off, I mean that literally, I have no idea where my iron quantity is displayed. And to save us 2 minutes of scouring my HUD, answer is, it doesn't exist, because it won't display until you at least have 1. So begins my search for the iron resource. With my troops pushing south and my scout checking out the north, I come to a problematic conclusion. I don't think there's any iron near me. Enter my strange solution. Upon closer inspection, my very first starting city has an iron tile. But how is that possible? Well, number 1, advanced resources don't appear until you properly research them. So as my civ grew, the iron sorta just appeared. Secondly, remember those raiders that came by? Turns out you have to manually bring a builder unit onto the destroyed tile to repair the improvement. But after quite the saga, I finally start stockpiling my own iron. As the game falls into a little bit of a lull, I take a gander at the full expanded tech trees, but I gotta say, my favorite has got to be social media, with the policy of leave a like on the video. And while the turns are flying by, I'm not sure I'm ready to commit to a 100 turn production. And as we finally move from BC to AD, our civilization hits its own golden age. The world leaders start to come together for the World Summit. I'm not exactly sure how it all works though. I have the most shinies under me, but none of my proposals end up winning. Another new system here is direct trading, which is legally distinct from the trade routes you can establish out on the world map. This one is directly dealing with specific civilizations. Though again, I'm not 100% sure how to read this. There's a box that reads gold per turn, but doesn't have any number. He wants open borders, but it looks like there's already an open borders agreement. And a little legal advice for kids out there: never sign a contract that you can barely understand. Now at this point, the game really speeds up, largely because I've chosen to ignore parts of the game I don't understand, and partly because I've fully expanded my civilization to all its immediate borders. But unfortunately, that peace would not last, as my northern neighbor declares a surprise war on me. And suddenly, I have 5 enemy units sharing my border. Unfortunately for them, my Korean heritage bestowed me with one unique military tool, the humble Hwacha. With 3 on my side, I am able to riddle their entire advancing army with hundreds upon hundreds of arrows. Except this great general. I'm not exactly sure how I deal with that. After laying waste to a total of 8 enemy units, Victoria waves the white flag, which, with a peace offering of 20 niter and 57 gold, I graciously accept, so I can return to my pursuit of my one true love, knowledge. Now at this point I've probably been playing for around 3 hours total. Now the tutorial stated that the game ends around 2000 AD, so I figured, hey, if I started in 4000 BC, I'm more than half of the way there. But as the turns go by, something seems a little off. In the beginning, every end turn would jump ahead nearly 50 years on the timeline. Yet now, with only 500 years left to go, the passage of time has slowed to a crawl. And that's when I noticed the little number just above it, and it turns out I'm barely halfway through my first game. So after declining to give away 20 niter in exchange for allowing my dastardly neighbor to freely roam my territories, and after completely failing to grasp any part of how this World Congress thing actually works, I decide to call it for the day. So is civilization impossible to learn? Not really. If you ignore entire major aspects of the game like faith, not set sail a single time, make a fool of yourself on the world stage, okay, it's still pretty complicated, but it is a lot of fun. Now let me teach you a new system. Here on YouTube, we got likes, subscribes, Patreons, more videos.